I guess number one, what is your biggest challenge as you come to Houston?
My biggest challenge is just a lot of people to meet. A lot of people internally with my workforce. I pride myself in the fact that I've got a workforce here of about 2,500 people, and I know just about all of them. Then meeting the community, meeting all the stakeholders. And Houston is a huge city. I like to think that community policing is about relationships, right? So I was just joking with somebody this morning about the fact that obviously we're in the people business, but we need to move from community policing to relational policing, which means that every contact you make gets an opportunity to establish a relationship. Now it's up to us to make it a positive relationship. And so I think that's the biggest challenge, is actually getting to know folks and folks getting to know me. The second piece is, we've got a lot going on in Houston. There's some criminal increases in crime going on. We've, arguably our staffing is probably not at optimal levels. We have the potential of some people retiring. You have the Super Bowl coming. So there's a lot of balls in the air. But, what I love about cops is that they're resourceful, they're committed, they care. And no matter how tough we make it, sometimes we're the victims of our own success, we're going to make it work.
How will you gain their trust and loyalty? Because you do have a lot of folks who could have been chief, perhaps, and maybe wanted to. And also looking at staffing levels, you are down about 800 and could lose 200 to 400 more with the pension problems.
Yeah. Well, first of all, when people get to know your heart, internally, I love people, okay? People around the city, they yell, "Hey, Art!" When people are calling you Art, you know that you're connecting with them as a leader at a very personal level. They feel like they know you. I think once our men and women and the Houston Police Department get to know me, they're going to know that I'm going to work tirelessly for them, for the good ones. Now, if you're not going to be a good cop and you're going to go out abusing people, not doing the right thing, saying policies just as a suggestion, you're probably not going to be very successful under our Chief Art Acevedo. And I'm not going to apologize for that, because the very vast majority of police officers are honorable men and women. But in the world of instant information and 300 cell phones, even though maybe just 1% of police officers aren't worthy of the privilege of wearing the uniform and the badge, that's a lot of 1% is a lot of damage that can be done in the profession. I will always fight tooth and nail to protect, serve, and lead the 99%, and to hold accountable and make sure that they don't ruin it for the 99%, that 1% that really have no business being cops.
You pay attention to social media. How important is that to you to figure out what's going on in the community?
Well, we have a president-elect that gets social media, and he talks about it a lot. And so I think he got those ideas from me. I'm just kidding. But I think social media is really important. We have kids nowadays, young people that are tech-savvy. Half of them don't even have conversations anymore. It's all about Twitter and Snapchat and all these other things. So I believe that social media can be very valuable. It can also be very destructive. If you are not monitoring social media as a leader, as an organization, things can spiral out of control very quickly. Some member of the Houston media this weekend was talking and acting like they couldn't find me. Well, when I got a hold of it, they found me real quick because I reached out to them, and you're able to really put out a lot of fires, but more importantly, give information in a timely manner. Not to mention from an investigatory standpoint, it is a crowdsourcing methodology you can use to really even solve crimes and prevent crimes.
Why Houston?
Oh, God, why not? It is, first of all, I grew up going to Houston. I have family in Houston, my aunts and uncles and cousins, and my aunt and uncle's now gone, but my cousins are still there. So starting in 1975, we used to go to Houston every summer. And when you see what's happened with that city, it is such a great city. I mean, I'm from Los Angeles. I kind of say that I don't want to offend my Houstonians, but Houston's kind of like L.A. with humidity a little bit. They're very similar cities. L.A. is diverse. Houston's more diverse. It's the most diverse city in the country. There's a lot of policing challenges. We have so many challenges in terms of crime and infrastructure security. They've got one of the world's busiest ports and probably the second busiest port in the nation, in the Port of Houston. And so there's so much going on. And then you look at the staffing thing, where we may lose 200, 300, 400 officers, but luckily, I already know how to deal with that. We had in the past in Houston the 655 program. I think that was Bob Lanier that brought it when they had a shortage, where you can use a salary savings to basically hire on overtime officers to make up the difference. And quite frankly, to an extent, it saves money because you don't pay for benefits. So, all those challenges is something I thrive on. If I am not busy, I'm a guy that doesn't want to be bored. I mean, I'm going 100 miles an hour. I already told the team over there in Houston, I'll be sending up what we call follow up, please, FUPs, And I tell them that, a lot of times in the middle of the night you'll be getting FUPs, so make sure that your phone is on mute, or else you're going to be hearing a lot of emails coming through. So it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a great challenge. It's a great city. We've got so many great things to do there. And then I'll be real frank with you. I really like Sylvester Turner. I think Mayor Turner gets it. He's big picture. He doesn't do anything small, and then the way he even handled this process, which I'm not going to talk about the process because I know that a lot of people were upset, but I think the way he handled it was brilliant, because big city chiefs very often don't want to participate in processes if their names are going to be all over the place, because it puts them at risk. And I can guarantee you, because that man had the courage to do it his way, a la Frank Sinatra, he ended up being able to take a look at a lot of really great leaders. And so I can't wait. And then I got to meet the council members, and just that spirit there were, these folks, conservative members, more progressive members, they can actually, I think they can set an example for Congress. They're not putting party dogma ahead of good public policy. And what I sense from them is that we are being led in terms of our political leadership by people that want to put Houston first and not party politics first.
I know, talking to some of the police officers, a big concern among them is cases that are reported, initially investigated, and then fall to the wayside because, quite frankly, they've got something else to do.
Yeah. Is that me? Sorry.
It may be a manpower issue or something else. How will you address that?
Well, I think that we're going to be doing an assessment of the entire organization. I plan on setting out a survey to every single member of the Houston Police Department, asking them for what their priorities are, what the challenges are, what the opportunities are, what is it that they think we need to do. But I promise you that if cases are not being investigated when there's investigative leads, we are going to work very hard to make sure that we get on those, because there's nothing worse than being a victim of a crime, like a burglary of your residence, where you feel so violated. And then every time somebody burglarizes a residence, especially at night, we're one incident closer to aggravated assault, an aggravated sexual assault, a murder. So solving crimes that are solvable are going to be a high priority. Understanding that recidivists and that a small percentage of our population is responsible for a large number of crimes, we have got to follow up on crimes that have follow-up, and we will do that. So we'll figure it out. I mean, you got to be creative, you got to think outside the box, and all hands have to be on deck, and I'm hopeful that that'll happen very quickly.
Given what happened this week in San Antonio, how difficult is it to be a police officer given the ambush nature, it seems like it?
Yeah, this is it's a profession that's never been easy. It's a profession where we are always having to react. I think I asked the question, what do you call your use of force policy in Houston? They call it use of force policy. Well, we're going to change that, because police officers are always responding to the actions of a suspect. This isn't the totalitarian government. We just walk around with our guns out all the time. We always have to respond to the actions of a suspect. So we call our policy here response to resistance, because that's what you're doing. And so because we're responding to somebody else's actions, we're always at a disadvantage. So we're going to have to really work on making sure that our officers are well trained, well equipped, well staffed, and most importantly, the biggest thing that we can do, I think, to be safe is to make sure we do everything we can to win the hearts and minds of the people we serve. We want to create a relationship, which I think is already there, but we want to strengthen it with our community, that when they see an officer on the side of a road, in an alleyway, in a fight for his or her life, we want to create a relationship where the people that we serve aren't going to get out a cell phone just to try to capture a police officer doing something wrong. They can have their 15 minutes of fame. I want to create a relationship and build on a relationship that instead of worrying about this, our community is going to be there with us, getting in the trenches with us, standing up for their neighbors, and when they see an officer in need, helping that officer by coming to their aid. And I think that when we have that kind of mindset, we get those kind of results.
What's your number one goal?
My number one goal is to make sure that at the end of any given day, none of my officers are seriously injured or killed, that we haven't violated anybody's constitutional rights or broken any laws, and thirdly, that we have done everything we can in the nation's fourth largest city. Forbes just named it the fastest growing city, well on its way to becoming the nation's third largest city. I want to make sure that in every given 24-hour period that we can honestly face the people that we serve and say, we've done our very best to make sure we don't have tragedy for any family, whether it's a family in blue or a member of our community. And so if we can do those things, I always tell cops are very emotional people. I mean, as you can tell by sitting here with me, if none of us gets hurt or killed, if we haven't, broken the law or violated someone's constitutional rights, there's nothing we can't change. So don't get too excited. If you don't like a policy, we can work on it. If we go in a direction as a police department and it doesn't work, we're going to reassess and we're going to readjust and we're going to move forward. And so I can't wait, because I think that I've already met a lot of cops in Houston. I mean, I've been there a couple of days, and I will not pass up a police officer without saying hi and introducing myself. So it's one of them I almost had to chase down. I don't know if they're not used to seeing a chief wanting to talk to them, but I like meeting people, and I love people. I love cops, and I love the people we serve, and I think we're going to have a good time. So my number one goal is to being successful. I want to replicate what I believe is the successful relationship that we as a department have had. I want to replicate our trajectory, because I promise you that if you ask anybody that wants to take the time to be honest, they'll tell you that the journey we've been on 10 years ago, that, I just came in here a little bit ago, and, I told my organization I told them, we are on the move, okay, in 2007. APD on the move. And the smart Alex changed it to HPD. And, we have been on the move. We will never reach our true destination, because the destination that we seek is perfection. And we understand as leaders, and we understand as a police department, that perfection is not achievable, because the human condition is absolutely imperfect. But the ride and the pursuit always will end with good outcomes for everybody. Your message to the people of Houston? Well, get ready, because I think there's a positive storm coming. I've been, like I said, like I teased the mayor at the press conference when he talked about how they vetted me, and I've been vetting him. And we've got a mayor that is all over the place. He's traveling the world, fighting for trade for the city of Houston. He's traveling Houston. I think he's probably one of the hardest working people in Houston. And now he's going to have a police chief that's going to work hard as well to make sure that when he goes out to his community, he can say, hey, I hired a leader that's doing his very best for all segments of Houston and for all Houstonians, and a leader that's going to take care of his men and women that he leads. I talked to a police officer this morning who said you'd be 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Is that accurate? Pretty much. Hey, you cannot be an absentee landlord. You cannot be an absentee landlord. This is a great responsibility, leading men and women that every day when they go 10-8 and they drive out that gate, or they're even in their own parking lot, like just happened in San Antonio, when they don this uniform, what they have said to the society they serve is, I am willing to die for a person I will never meet. We actually added it to our oath of office. because when I took the oath of office in 1986 with the California Highway Patrol, and I added it here, our oath said, I would rather lay down my life, I will lay down my life rather than swerve from the path of duty. And when you have people that are willing to make that commitment, I think that I have no choice but to, if they're going to work hard, I need to work harder.
I know your department here was getting body cams. How important is transparency to you and your success and the city's success, frankly?
Yeah, listen, transparency breeds trust. Trust breeds cooperation. Cooperation breeds really good outcomes. You know, if people trust us and they cooperate with us, whether it's pay for the officers, because everybody has you got a vested interest, whatever it is, it all starts with transparency. You know, and I've always talked about that. You know, I came up with this acronym once. It's TREAT, and you know, my people kind of tease me about it, but it's true. This is something that is for. It's a mutual responsibility between neighbors and neighborhoods and churches, and police and residents and citizens. But for the police, it's not just a responsibility; it's a duty. It's a sworn duty, and that is to treat. We need to be transparent in everything we do. We need to be respectful, and respect starts with self-respect. We need to engage one another. You know, people that I call the haters. You know, that out here because they don't know me, but they want to label me. They'll say, "Oh, he's a media monger. He's a media whatever." I don't use the word, but they don't get it. When you're serving a city of 1 million or a city of 2.5 million, the media is my way to engage my community. You know, I mean, I cannot meet 2.5 million people or 1 million people here or 2 million people in this metro or 6 million people in the Houston metro. In a lifetime, I can't meet all those folks. But I use the media to engage, and then I work 365 days a year to be out in the streets engaging. We got to engage one another. The more you engage people, the more you get to know them. The more you get to know them, that's how you build relationships, right? And then we have to hold people accountable. I have to hold myself accountable, the men and women I lead accountable, but we have to hold the community accountable. The community needs to hold itself accountable. And if we do those things, transparency, respect, engagement, accountability, it ends up building trust. It ain't rocket science. And at the end of the day, policing is not about CSI. You know, we have CSI Miami, Houston, LA, Vegas. Policing and police work starts and ends with relationships and trust.
Why is it difficult to leave Austin?
Oh, God. Because this community has, we've been on a heck of a journey. And I've grown to love the men and women of the Austin Police Department. I mean, I love these men and women. And it's hard to say goodbye to them. I think I'm out of tears, actually. But it's not just the police department; it's the community. They took this 42-year-old skinny California Highway Patrolman. I'll never forget when I was on the hiring panel. A guy named Joseph Parker, African American Baptist minister on the East Side. He looks at me, and I mean, this was an intimidating process they had here. And I mean, it was like 25 people around this big old table. He sits by me, and he looks at me and has his glasses. And he looks at me, he says, I see here with this really voice that he had that you're a trooper. Now, how am I supposed to tell my congregation that we're going to hire a trooper? And what are you going to do to, you know, I said, Pastor Parker, when I get here, I'm going to ask you to join me. I'm going to ask you to strap on your seatbelt because I'm going to be the ambassador of the Austin Police Department, and there's not going to be a place where I'm not going to be known. And the reason it's hard to say goodbye is that I've gotten to know this community, and I consider myself part of it. And what I consider myself is a community leader that happens to be the police chief, and not a police chief that happens to be a community leader. Because tomorrow, the day that I'm done in Houston, that I either retire or I'm fired or I'm run out or whatever, I'm still going to be a community leader, because although I love what I do, you know, when I take this uniform off, it's the same caring, driven person that will continue to drive. because he's never forgotten about that Kung Fu doll on that Christmas morning that was the highlight of a Christmas day when we were growing up, kind of not doing really well financially, and thinking to myself, God, Santa, what did I do this year that that's all I got? Well, that memory and the fact that my parents have never let me forget where I came from will always drive me.
Anything else you wanted to say that I didn't ask?
Yeah. I've yet to meet a stranger, and I look forward to proving that to about 2.5 million people.